The Atlantic forest biome covers 1.3 million kilometers squared of Brazil's eastern coast, and whilst this is only 0.26% of the Earth's surface, it is possibly home to up to 8% of the world's total species. 40 million years ago, South America and Africa were rifted apart by a constructive plate boundary. The now tectonically stable South American platform has mountainous terrain leading to rolling plains. Soils are formed from old weathered sediments and are mainly red-duty soils and lack major nutrients. The climate is humid subtropical with a mean temperature of 24 degrees and 2,000 millimeters of rainfall per year, idyllic for fast vegetation growth all year round. First colonised in the 1500s, coastal regions were quickly deforested for port settlements and the first railroad was in 1831. The east coast is now home to 70% of Brazil's population, comprising megacities Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo, together housing 25.3 million and holding in 80% of Brazil's GDP. One of the most human-affected coastal ecosystems in the world are mangroves. They are found in the intertidal and often saline areas such as estuaries and coasts. Aerial roots are their iconic adaptation to submerged conditions. The roots stand above the low tide, allowing oxygen to be respired. On a global scale, mangroves are an important carbon store. Not only holding their own biomass, their roots also trap carbon-laden sediment travelling down from mountains. For this reason, many old mangroves are now being excavated for charcoal production. Mangroves are often seen as unproductive and are rapidly cleared. Recently, huge investments of $7.5 billion have been pumped into several Brazilian ports, including Rio de Janeiro. Most of these have extensive mangrove forests. 48% of mangrove deforestation is done by locals for firewood and land. Mangroves in Brazil are legally areas of permanent protection, however deforestation still occurs due to lack of funding and community understanding. Reforestation in all continents has fractionally decreased rates of loss, however due to increasing CO2 concentrations in water, planted seedlings in planned reforestation areas may not even survive. It would be more cost-effective to educate communities about mangrove importance, thus reducing difficult to police deforestation. Jurubatiba is the largest and most diverse national caatinga in Brazil. Due to harsh conditions travelling towards the coast, there is a clear gradient. Vegetation becomes smaller and has smaller leaves to avoid water loss. Clusia is a highly adapted species. It invests high amounts of energy into leaf production, producing thick leaves, enabling a long lifespan. This reduces any resources lost from high leaf turnover rates. However, this beautiful barren land is now classified as critically threatened and has been reduced by more than 90%. External threats include monoculture and livestock rearing. Exotic species such as Pinus and Cruzarian, which directly outcompete the native species, are being planted in attempts to re-landscape or provide windbreaks to new homes. The invisible borders need clear signage of protected natural park to inform public that damage to this region is illegal. An increase in illegal homes with no infrastructure is leading to sewage pollution in lagoons. Crackdown on illegal housing and low-level infrastructure investment should be required to reduce litter and pollution. 1 kilometre away is the petroleum terminal. Frequent ruptures cause contamination of water table and lagoons. Petrobras has now converted this to an easy-access overland pipe, reducing leakage, but also aesthetic quality of the land. Of the original 130 million hectares, only 9% of the Atlantic forest remains, with less than 2% of the biome under protected status. Uneao Biological Reserve has the strictest protection rules and is the closest stand of forest to being undisturbed. However, it still has many human impacts. That is overlooked by many is the clearing of forest for eucalyptus plantations. Eucalyptus clears understory by allelopathic chemicals that diminish seedling survival rates, removing all native competitors. Yet there may be a silver lining. The remaining abandoned plantations of eucalyptus do not seem to be exerting damaging allelopathic effects on certain species, and may be acting as a nurse tree, providing the degree of shade necessary for the regeneration of forests. The Atlantic forest was home to only 200 endemic golden lion tamarins in the 1960s. Deforestation was their main killer. Staying below 500 metres for hot, humid conditions, they are limited as the majority of remaining forest is mountainous. Considered an umbrella species, its loss will be due to the fact that we have lost the whole forest. With a socio-mycological, the chances of tamarin is looking up. Their aim is to achieve by the year 2025 a minimum population of at least 2,000 living freely on 25,000 hectares of protected and interconnected forests. Currently, they have 3,200 tamarins, but only 40% of the land required. The 3,000 hectares of privately owned land is divided into 11 fragments, preventing 18 families from creating a metapopulation. Using computer models, none of the 18 isolated populations are viable if handled individually. The afforestation of biological corridors between fragments enables the movement of these monkeys. 101 acts as a barrier isolating the GLTs in the reserve from the rest of the forest. ICM Bio required the construction of a forested overpass as a condition of the approval of the widening in 2007. Also, Autopista Fluminense are responsible for the management of the road and hire the GLT Association to replant over 50 hectares to correspond with environmental laws. Forest deforestation and regeneration involves a multitude of complex factors such as socio-economic, cultural, political and environmental. But with effort from all levels, the forest may just be able to survive.